Every second you breathe, Venus kills another piece of metal humanity sent there. While we celebrate Mars rovers lasting decades, the Soviet Union achieved something far more brutal. They built machines tough enough to survive in literal hell. Venus's surface reaches 900 degrees Fahrenheit with crushing pressure that would flatten a submarine instantly. Yet somehow, Soviet engineers managed to land 10 successful probes between 1970 and 1985, each one transmitting precious data before being consumed by the planet's wrath. Here's the kicker. One of those missions might have photographed alien life. Did you know the Soviet Union remains the only nation to successfully land on Venus and send back images? The Soviet obsession begins. October 4, 1957, while America celebrated another baseball season, a metal sphere the size of a beach ball screamed across the night sky, forever changing the space race. The Soviet Union had just launched Sputnik, and suddenly every eye turned upward. But here's what most people don't know. Within months of that historic beep beep beep, Soviet engineers were already plotting something far more ambitious than orbiting Earth. They wanted to touch another world entirely. Deep inside Moscow's design bureaus, Sergei Korolev, the mysterious chief designer whose name was kept secret even from his own cosmonauts, was obsessing over a target 108 million kilometers away. While NASA was still figuring out how to keep a monkey alive in space, Korolev's team had their sights set on Venus, Earth's hellish twin. By 1961, the directive was crystal clear: beat the Americans to a neighboring planet, no matter the cost. This wasn't just about scientific discovery, it was about proving Soviet superiority on the ultimate stage. Venus became their white whale, a cloud-shrouded mystery that promised either spectacular triumph or devastating failure. The pressure was immense, the technology barely existed, and the target was a world where lead would melt like butter. Yet somehow Soviet engineers convinced themselves they could pull off the impossible, landing a machine on another planet and making it talk back to Earth. What happened next would define decades of space exploration. Early failures and determination. 7 spacecraft, 7 failures, 7 heartbreaks. That's what Soviet engineers faced between 1961 and 1967 as probe after probe either missed Venus entirely or smashed into its surface like expensive meteorites. Venera 1 lost contact just 7 days into its journey, a $50 million piece of space junk tumbling through the void. Venera 2 and 3 followed suit, turning what should have been triumphant victories into public embarrassments that made Korolev chain smoke through sleepless nights. But here's the thing about Soviet engineers: they were stubborn as hell. Each failure only made them angrier, more determined to crack Venus's secrets. While Western newspapers mocked their cosmic flops, teams at OKB-1 were already dissecting every malfunction, upgrading heat shields and reinforcing communication systems. Korolev himself would pace the control rooms, barking orders and demanding answers. Why did the antenna fail? Why couldn't we hold the signal? What killed the batteries? The pressure was crushing. Every failed mission meant explaining to Khrushchev why millions of rubles had vanished into space. Engineers worked 18-hour shifts, knowing that their careers and possibly their freedom depended on the next launch. 1967 became their make-or-break year. They had one more chance with Venera 4, and this time they weren't just hoping to reach Venus, they were planning to survive its hellish embrace. The probe was built like a tank, designed to withstand pressures that would crush a submarine and temperatures that could melt copper. Failure was no longer an option. First atmospheric success. October 18, 1967, after 6 years of spectacular failures, Soviet mission control held its breath as Venera 4 plunged toward Venus like a metallic comet. This wasn't just another probe, this was their redemption shot, packed with instruments that could theoretically survive what scientists were calling the closest thing to hell in our solar system. For 94 minutes, the spacecraft transmitted data as it descended through Venus's mysterious atmosphere, and what it found changed everything we thought we knew about our neighboring world. The numbers coming back were absolutely mind-blowing. Venera 4 recorded atmospheric pressure between 75 to 100 atmospheres. Imagine being crushed under the weight of an entire ocean pressing down on you. The temperature readings? A scorching 462 degrees Celsius, hot enough to melt lead like butter. But here's what shocked the scientists most. The atmosphere was 96% carbon dioxide with clouds made of pure sulfuric acid. Venus wasn't Earth's twin sister, it was Earth's evil, psychotic cousin who'd gone completely insane. Mikhail Marov, the mission's lead scientist, watched the telemetry in stunned silence. All those romantic dreams of Venusian oceans and tropical jungles? Dead, gone, incinerated by the brutal reality of a runaway greenhouse effect. Yet somehow Venera 4 had actually worked. It had penetrated the killer atmosphere and lived long enough to tell the tale. For the first time in the space race, the Soviets had achieved something genuinely historic. They'd tasted the atmosphere of another world and survived to describe its lethal beauty. Landing on Venus. 23 minutes. That's all humanity had to prove we could survive on another planet. On December 15, 1970, Venera 7 became the first human-made object to successfully land on Venus and live to tell about it. Barely. After a harrowing 120-day journey through space, the probe slammed into the Venusian surface at 37 miles per hour. Its parachute partially failed, its antenna bent, and its signal so weak that engineers at Simferopol tracking station thought they'd lost another multi-million ruble gamble. But then something miraculous happened. Through the static and interference, a faint 20 Hz signal emerged from the hellscape below. Venera 7 was alive, transmitting temperature readings of 475 degrees Celsius and pressure measurements of 90 Earth atmospheres directly from the surface. For 23 precious minutes, this battered Soviet probe whispered secrets from a world where the air itself could crush you and the heat would vaporize your bones instantly. Vsevolod Avduevsky, the mission's chief designer, couldn't believe the telemetry scrolling across his screens. They'd actually done it. Mankind had successfully landed on another planet. Not Mars with its thin atmosphere and reasonable temperatures, but Venus, the solar system's torture chamber. The achievement was so unprecedented that NASA initially refused to believe it, demanding proof that the Soviets hadn't faked the entire mission. But the data was real, the signal was genuine, and Venera 7 had just written the first page of interplanetary exploration history. The impossible had become possible, one transmission at a time. First images from another world. For the first time in human history, we could see what standing on another planet actually looked like. On October 22, 1975, Venera 9 didn't just land on Venus. It opened its mechanical eyes and showed Earth what hell actually looked like. After surviving a 136-day journey and a bone-crushing descent through sulfuric acid clouds, the probe deployed its camera and began transmitting the most extraordinary photographs ever taken, actual images from the surface of another world. The panoramic shots were grainy, black and white, and absolutely mesmerizing. Sharp-edged rocks scattered across a desolate landscape, bathed in the eerie glow of Venus's thick atmosphere that filtered sunlight into a perpetual orange twilight. Venera 9's twin, Venera 10, landed 3 days later and captured even more haunting scenes. Flat rock slabs stretching toward the horizon like an alien parking lot, with visibility extending several hundred meters despite the crushing atmospheric density. Mikhail Marov and his team at Moscow's Space Research Institute stared at these images in stunned silence. They were looking at soil that had never felt rain, rocks that had been baked for billions of years under an atmosphere thick enough to crush submarines. The surface temperature was still 462 degrees Celsius, the pressure still 92 times that of Earth. But now they could actually see this hostile world with their own eyes. These weren't artists' illustrations or scientific guesses. These were real photographs from Venus's surface. Venera 9 and 10 had accomplished something that seemed like pure science fiction just decades earlier. They'd given humanity its first glimpse of what it might be like to stand on an alien world. The Pinnacle missions. An alien dawn once colored in full RGB. On March 1, 1982, Venera 13 punched through Venus's toxic sky, smashed into basalt bedrock, then, against every Vegas odd, kept broadcasting for 127 heart-stopping minutes. Inside its titanium shell sat the crown jewel, the first color TV camera ever dropped on another planet. When the lens cap popped, Mission Control gasped. A kaleidoscope of orange-red soil, charcoal rocks, and a sepia haze spilled onto Soviet monitors, rewriting humanity's mental wallpaper of the cosmos. Buried in that same lander was a spring-loaded drill no wider than a soda can yet strong enough to bite into stone at 9 MPa of surface pressure. It cored a sample, flipped it into an onboard spectrometer, and revealed a basaltic chemistry eerily similar to Earth's seabed volcanics, hinting that Venus once erupted oceans of lava on a planetary scale. Meanwhile, a tiny anemometer detected surface winds of merely 0.3 meters per second, adding an eerie stillness to a world hot enough to melt zinc. Across the Soviet Union, newspapers trumpeted Venera 13 proves Venus alive, geologically. Even rival scientists at NASA's Jet Propulsion Laboratory grudgingly hailed it as the most audacious planetary data haul since Apollo. Yet buried beneath the celebratory headlines lurked a quieter mystery. One camera frame showed a pancake-shaped object that seemed to shift position between shots. Engineers blamed ejecta flutter. Conspiracy buffs shouted, Venusian life. Whatever the truth, Venera 13 closed the curtain on the golden age of Soviet interplanetary conquest, leaving a trove of data and one perplexing moving blob, still puzzling researchers 4 decades later. Balloon missions and program end. The last Soviet gamble floated on helium dreams, about 20 kilometers above Venus's scorching surface. In June of 1985, twin spacecraft Vega 1 and 2 approached Venus, not to crash land like their predecessors, but to deploy something, revolutionary helium-filled balloons that would ride the planet's middle atmosphere like cosmic jellyfish. Each balloon, inflated to 3.5 meters in diameter, carried a 21-kilogram gondola packed with instruments. These were designed to drift through Venus's sulfuric acid clouds at 54 kilometers altitude, the only zone where temperatures dropped to a survivable -43 degrees Celsius. For 46 incredible hours, these floating laboratories transmitted wind speeds, chemical compositions, and lightning activity, while being swept around Venus at 240 kilometers per hour by the planet's mysterious super-rotation. Roald Sagdev, director of the Soviet Space Research Institute, watched the telemetry with, bittersweet pride. They were achieving groundbreaking atmospheric science even as the Soviet Union itself was crumbling under Gorbachev's perestroika. The balloons eventually succumbed to acid corrosion and crushing atmospheric dynamics, but their data revealed Venus's atmosphere was far more violent and complex than anyone had imagined. Ironically, as these final transmissions faded into static, so did the Soviet space program's planetary ambitions. Budget cuts, political upheaval, and the USSR's 1991 collapse ended humanity's most audacious planetary exploration program. Vega 1 and 2 became the period at the end of a remarkable sentence. The Soviets had conquered Venus through sheer engineering stubbornness, only to abandon their victory just as they'd perfected the art of surviving in hell. American and Japanese missions. While the Soviets floated their last balloons through Venus's toxic clouds, America was quietly building the ultimate planetary spy satellite. NASA's Pioneer Venus Orbiter, launched in May 1978, had been methodically mapping Venus from orbit for over a decade. But it was Magellan, launched aboard Space Shuttle Atlantis in May 1989, that would revolutionize our understanding of Earth's hellish twin. Using synthetic aperture radar to pierce through Venus's perpetual cloud cover, Magellan spent 4 years creating the most detailed maps of another planet's surface ever attempted, revealing a world shaped by volcanic fury on an almost incomprehensible scale. The radar images were breathtaking and terrifying. Magellan discovered massive shield volcanoes larger than Hawaii's Big Island, impact craters scattered like cosmic bullet holes, and vast lava plains that suggested Venus had essentially resurfaced itself within the last 800 million years. Meanwhile, halfway around the world, Japan's Akatsuki probe faced its own drama. After missing Venus orbit insertion in 2010, engineers pulled off a miraculous 5-year rescue mission, finally achieving orbit in 2015 to study the planet's mysterious atmospheric super-rotation. Akatsuki's infrared cameras revealed something stunning. Venus's atmosphere rotates 60 times faster than the planet itself, creating hurricane-force winds that circle the globe in just 4 Earth days. Combined with ESA's Venus Express findings, these missions painted Venus as a world caught in permanent atmospheric chaos. While Soviet landers had shown us Venus's hellish surface, these orbital missions revealed the bigger picture, a planet where the very air moves like a liquid ocean, driven by forces that still baffle atmospheric scientists today. Mysterious discoveries. A single molecule detected in Venus's clouds just reignited the biggest question in astrobiology: are we alone? In September 2020, astronomers using the James Clerk Maxwell Telescope in Hawaii dropped a scientific bombshell that sent shockwaves through the space community. They'd discovered phosphine gas floating in Venus's upper atmosphere, a molecule that, on Earth, is only produced by living organisms or industrial processes. Since Venus has no factories, the implications were staggering. Something might actually be alive in those sulfuric acid clouds. Professor Jane Greaves and her team at Cardiff University spent months double-checking their data, knowing the explosive nature of their claim. Phosphine shouldn't exist in Venus's oxidizing atmosphere. It should be destroyed within minutes by the planet's harsh chemistry. Yet there it was, 20 parts per billion, stubbornly persisting where it had no right to exist. The discovery triggered fierce scientific debates, with NASA immediately announcing new Venus missions and Russia dusting off plans for atmospheric probes. But the mystery deepened when researchers revisited old Venera photographs from the 1980s. Enhanced digital analysis revealed peculiar polygonal structures and objects that seemed to change position between camera shots, features that defied easy geological explanation. Were these compression artifacts from decades-old Soviet cameras or something more intriguing? Dr. Leonid Xanfomality, a veteran of the original Venera missions, stirred controversy by suggesting these anomalies might represent quasi-living systems adapted to Venus's extreme environment. While most scientists remain skeptical, pointing to instrument noise and data processing errors, the tantalizing possibility lingers. Venus might be hiding life in the most unlikely corner of our solar system.
Journey to Venus simulation.
Step inside a titanium capsule and feel the crushing weight of 92 Earth atmospheres pressing against your virtual bones. In 2024, researchers at MIT's Virtual Reality Laboratory created the most immersive Venus simulation ever attempted, a digital recreation that lets users stand beside Venera 13 on the planet's hellish surface. Using data from decades of Soviet missions, the VR experience transforms your living room into Venus's scorching landscape, complete with haptic feedback that simulates the bone-crushing 9 MPa pressure and audio that recreates the eerie silence broken only by the mechanical whirring of a dying Soviet probe. The orange-tinted horizon stretching endlessly under a sulfuric sky, the razor-sharp basalt rocks that could slice through steel, even the gradual shutdown sequence as components failed one by one in the 475-degree heat. Users can toggle between Earth normal conditions and Venus reality with a simple gesture, instantly feeling their virtual body crushed by atmospheric pressure equivalent to diving 900 meters underwater. The simulation serves a sobering purpose, reminding us why the Soviet achievement was so extraordinary. Modern students experience what it means to engineer machines tough enough to survive in conditions that would obliterate human flesh in seconds. Venera 13's 127-minute survival becomes viscerally impressive when you feel Venus trying to kill you through a VR headset. As virtual wind sensors detect the planet's ghostly 0.3 meters per second breeze, users understand they're witnessing humanity's greatest planetary conquest, a testament to Soviet stubbornness that turned the impossible into scientific triumph, leaving us with more questions than answers about our mysterious, murderous neighbor. So there you have it, the Soviet Union's incredible Venus conquest that remains unmatched even today. From 7 crushing failures to 10 successful landings, they proved that human ingenuity can survive anywhere, even in hell itself. But here's what keeps me awake at night, those mysterious moving objects in the Venera photos. Were they just camera glitches? Or did the Soviets accidentally photograph the first signs of alien life? What do you think those polygonal structures really were? Drop your theories in the comments below. I read every single one. If you're hungry for more mind-blowing space mysteries like this, smash that subscribe button and hit the bell icon so you never miss when Space Facts drops another cosmic bombshell. Until next time, keep looking up.